G'day, I'm DK.
And I'm Ardeet.
Thanks for joining us for this week's Two Ticks Town Talk, a segment from the Australia Talks podcast.
Yeah, this is one of our favourite parts of bringing the podcast to you, our listeners.
So please enjoy this segment from the regular podcast.
I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. Across the desert, fair man. I've breathed the mountain air, man. I've traveled, I've had.
All right, this week's Two Ticks Town Talk, we're going to go back west, all the way west. Actually, like the furthest west you can go. Not even on the Australian mainland. We're going back to Shark Bay, but we're gonna do a little hop, skip, and a jump. My last Two Ticks Town Talk was about the closed company town of Useless Loop. But we're going to focus on its neighbour, literally a hop, skip, and a jump away, Dirk Hartog Island, it's about 80 kilometres long and it varies between 3 and 15 kilometres wide, which is about 50 miles long and between 2 and 9 miles wide. And it is Western Australia's largest and westernmost island, and it's quite commonly described as the most western point of the continental Australia, even though it's not. It's an island. It's not attached, but it doesn't count as an external territory. Let's put it that way.
Sorry, hang on. So what do you clarify what you mean by that?
So it's the gap, I should say, between the mainland and Dirk Hartog Island is only 1.7 kilometres. So as much as it's technically not attached to the mainland, but it very much is part of the same piece of land as the continent of Australia.
Okay.
Yeah, compared to say like the Cocos Keeling Islands or something like that, which you could argue is the most western point, but look, it's all semantics. In my mind, the edge of Dirk Hartog Island is the westernmost point of the continent of Australia. But look, who wants to get into the semantics of it? Look, it is approximately only 20 kilometres from Useless Loop, but that 20-kilometre trip, as the crow flies, takes about a good hour and a half to drive to where the ferry will get you across onto the island, mostly just because of the limited road access. But we are talking to sort of like outback Western Australia. It's there's not a lot of fauna and flora around here to be too concerned with, but you would have to sort of drive through quite a lot of sand dunes, and I think you'd be best if you stuck to the roads instead of trying to bush bash your way across. But the island was originally known as Wirrawanga by the traditional custodians of the land, the Malgana people. And the island is named after a Dutch captain, Dirk Hartog, and basically has been named after him ever since he discovered it. He was the first European to encounter the Western Australian coastline back in 1616. Wow. And we've got another classic case of Europeans naming things after themselves, because no one has an imagination if they're born in the West. Now, let's get stuck into some history, because this is really what is interesting about the island. The island itself is a long strip of land, basically desolate land, with rolling sand dunes and scrubby bush that's got pretty much nothing on it. So there's not too much exploring of the actual island itself. It's more the history that's really interesting. So back in 1616, Dutch Captain Dirk Hartog was sailing his ship, the Indrak, to the East Indies when a storm blew his ship off course. He thought that he would use the strong winds of the roaring 40s to blow him east, and he made contact with the west coast of Australia. Now, remember, at this time, there were rumours of Terra Australis, as they called it, but this was only the second time Europeans had actually reached the continent of Australia. But this was the first time anyone had made it to the west coast. Prior to that, it was about 10 years earlier in 1606, a Dutch captain had bumped into the York Peninsula in Cape York Peninsula in Queensland. So you can imagine this is literally thousands of kilometers distant. And so at the time, they probably really didn't fully understand exactly what they had encountered. And almost certainly didn't think it was part of the same landmass. Dirk Hartog and his crew spent 3 days exploring what, of course, is now the island named after him. And basically, he found that the land was uninhabitable and of no use to the Dutch East India Company, who he worked for. Pretty much, though, this 3-day exploration really can't be understated as one of the most important moments in, well, I say modern, but Australian history, as it was the first time that Western Australia was visited and literally put on the map for European explorers. Basically, had a Dutchman not got blown off course 410 years ago, Australia might look like a bit of a different place, but we're not here for alternative history, so I digress. We know of Hartog's visit and his exact date and exactly where he landed, and the names of the senior people on board his vessel, because he left us a note. He inscribed on a pewter plate. He flattened a pewter plate. We can assume this was, a plate on board, the cutlery on board the vessel, his ship, and they hammered it flat and inscribed it with these details, which I'll literally quote what it said in a minute. And they nailed this plate to a wooden post before continuing north up the coast, charting the area for the first time in European history. That pewter plaque said, quote, 1666, full stop. On 25th October, there arrived. Obviously, he wrote it in Dutch. This is the translation. I feel like I need to say that. He spoke good English for a Dutchman.
Incredible as it may seem.
On 25th of October, there arrived here a ship, Indraat of Amsterdam, supercargo Gillies Membas of Liège, skipper Dirk Hartog of Amsterdam. On 27th day, she set sail again for Bantam, subcargo Jan Stins, upper steersman Peter Dawes of Bill, in the year 1616, end quote. So they really wanted us to know that it was in 1616 because they said it twice. That plate remained where it was on the island for 80 years. And it wasn't until 80 years. And it wasn't until 1697 when another Dutch captain, William de Vlaming, visited the island and found the weathered plate. He took it, he stole it, and he replaced it with a new pewter plate that copied Hartog's original inscription and then added his own to it. Because, of course, you got to add your own glory. And he took that back to the Netherlands. So keep that in the back of your mind for now. The second plate stayed, so this was in 1697. The second plate stayed in that spot on the island until 1801. So fast forward more than 100 years, when two French ships, the Naturaliste and the Géographie, arrived under French naval officer and explorer Emmanuel Hamelin, which was part of the Bolden expedition to Australia, which I mentioned last Two Ticks Town Talk when we were talking about the name of where Useless Loop got its name from. So, of course, same guys, same place, having a look around as they do. They found de Vlaming's plate, which had basically pretty much buried itself in the sand. And it's actually quite incredible that they found it there because the post that it was nailed to had rotted away after so long. a young French cartographer, Louis de Freycinet, who is quite famous. He, again, mentioned him in the last Two Ticks Town Talk. He is the bloke that comes back to Australia, continues to explore Encounter Bay and all of that kind of stuff. He removed the plate and wanted to take it with them, but his captain, Hamlin, ordered that it be re-erected in its original position and left, which I think
that's pretty
quite
honourable.
noble of him.
Yeah.
Like, no. That's not ours. Don't touch things that's not yours. Put it back. And 17 years later, now a captain himself, Freycinet comes back to the island aboard his own ship, and he steals the plate and he takes it back to France. He had a friggin' axe to grind. He was like, nah, we're bloody coming back here and I'm taking it with me. And I am glad that he did, because he took it back to France and it stayed in France, basically forgotten, put in an archive, in a box in the Louvre somewhere, and it was rediscovered in 1940, which is pretty incredible. In the war they found it. What's this crap? And it was returned back to Australia in 1947. So today, the original Hartog plate is held in a museum in Amsterdam. But the original Vlaming plate, which is that second one, is in the collection of the Western Australia Maritime Museum here in Perth. And the National Library of Australia holds a replica, a very good replica, mind you. You wouldn't know it was, a replica of it at the National Library as well. If we rewind, so enough about the plates. If we rewind the clock back to the 28th of March, 1772, French navigator Louis Almond de Saint-Almond landed on the island and became the first European to formally take possession of Western Australia in the name of the French King Louis XV. That involved a ceremony on the 30th of March, during which one or more bottles, we know it was more than one, but we don't know how many, were buried on the island. One bottle was recorded as containing the annexation document and a coin, because, of course, you've got to pay for it. In 1998, a bottle cap made of lead and a coin set in it was found at Turtle Bay by a team led by Philip Gonard and Max Kramer. That triggered a broader search by a team from the Western Australian Museum led by Maria Stanbury and Bob Shepherd, Bob Creasy and Dr. Michael McCarthy. In 1998, that team found an intact bottle with a lead cap identical to the first one that they'd recovered earlier, also with a coin set in it. But there was no trace of any annexation document. So, sorry, Frenchies, if you're listening to this, your claim remains invalid and you're not having Western Australia. To this day, realistically speaking, there's a good chance that more bottles do remain out there, but so far we haven't found any. Hopefully in the future, perhaps another expedition may uncover something. But I think it's very, very interesting that so much of the history around European exploration has occurred on this seemingly very small island off the coast of Western Australia that otherwise doesn't really have anything particularly interesting about it. There's no available fresh water source on the island. Mm-hmm. There's no, trees. There's no harvestable resources. There's kind of like, it very much is a desert island off the coast of Western Australia. So, but for some reason, it seems to be the point where all of this history occurred. Now, if we fast forward to 1869, basically nothing of interest really much happened because, again, this is a desolate island. In 1869, Francis Louis von Bibra, son of Franz Ludwig von Bibra, was granted a lease to the island, which he grazed sheep there. And he also traded guano from its bays. At the time, of course, just remembering that guano was worth basically its weight in gold as fertilizer up until quite modern history. And so naturally, it was very, very valuable. And that was really the only resource ever traded or sort of mined from the island, but it didn't have a huge supply. So this wasn't like a massive industrial. This was kind of like, we've got some, we can trade it with you. But in 1907, the leasehold of the island was acquired from them, and it changed hands a few times. And basically, it was regarded as an ideal place for a sheep station, as there was no danger of rabbits and other introduced pests because it's an island. And by 1909, it was carrying a flock of about 12,000 sheep and produced approximately 400 bales of wool a year, which is a pretty significant sort of sheep station. And of course,
I wonder where they got the water from.
Well, this is the sort of thing. I'm not really sure. They must have dug like wells or something along those lines. Look, like there are small depressions, and I would imagine when it rains, you may get some sort of temporary lakes and things like that. But you're right; it's a lot of sheep. Look, the island's not small, but it is a lot of sheep. But I can see why it would be, providing the sheep can get enough water. I can see why this would be a pretty perfect spot. It's a long, thin island. The sheep, you don't really need to put too many fences up because the sheep can't really go anywhere. They're protected from predators. There's literally nothing on the island that is of particular danger to a sheep. Probably the worst thing that's going to happen is they'll die of thirst or perhaps wander into the ocean. But it's pretty rare. I can't say I've seen many sheep go for a swim.
No.
Around this time, sort of that turn of the 20th century, there was more interesting. More interest was appearing in not just the island itself, but the broader area, with pearlers being frequented in the area, and of course, sort of across the whole west coast of Western Australia, we've seen pearling interest and those sorts of things. So that's not a big surprise, and maritime traffic increased along the coast as well. And as a result, work commenced on building a lighthouse at the Cape, the Northern Cape, in 1908. Is when construction officially began. But in 1907, during preliminary survey for the lighthouse and lightkeeper's quarters, Hamel's posts were removed and replaced with new timber posts and commemorative plaques. So through the whole process, even back in the turn of the century, I think we realized pretty quickly the value, the historical value of those plaques and exactly where they were and so on and so forth. And today, I should add as well, today, those plaques are still there. You can go and see them. They have replicas and everything like that. Yes, they're not the original plaques, but they are a faithful reproduction. A jetty was established at Turtle Bay, and a tram line was built to transport supplies and equipment to the lighthouse, which the Commonwealth. Unfortunately, the jetty was destroyed in a storm in 1937, and the tramway remained in place until the 1950s. And you can still kind of see remains of the tram line today between Turtle Bay and the lighthouse, which there's not really anything much else except the one other thing, which I'll tell you about in a minute, on the island. So when you go, if you go, you should go, book it now. That's kind of one of the big things is let's go see Turtle Bay and the lighthouse. In 1938, the Australian government affixed a plaque to the lighthouse commemorating Hartog's landing, including a translation of the original inscription. And the lighthouse itself is built out of reinforced concrete naturally. What's cool though about it is it does use shells and sand as its aggregate from the beach below, which kind of makes it a bit unique. Though I'm not really sure about its sort of longevity long term, because beach sand isn't particularly good to use for concrete. It doesn't make it super strong and things like that. But the lighthouse is quite tall. It's 16.3 meters high, and it's 10 meters to the gallery. It's about 6 meters wide, and it's 37 meters from the Hyde water mark. So pretty good lighthouse in terms of its actual functionality as a lighthouse. The quarters were built to accommodate 2 separate families so that you could have shifts to man the lighthouse. Unfortunately, like, it was built in 1908, but pretty quickly it was automated. By 1917, it was completely automated and no one lived there anymore. So it doesn't feel like a bit of a waste of spending all this money building it in such a remote location to basically, well, too bad. See you later. Less than 10 years later. Thankfully, a national park was created on the island back in November 2009, which is way too recent, in my opinion. I feel like it should have, been a national park much before that, considering its historical value. But that national park covers almost all of the island, and it has been opened up to tourists under carefully managed sustainable tourism arrangement. You do need permits and things like that. And a number of conservation programs to protect the region's unique biodiversity and natural and cultural and historical heritage are underway, some of which have been completed. These are funded by the state and Commonwealth governments, and they have a program called the Returning to 1616 program, which involves returning the island's ecology to basically back to how Dirk Hartog would have seen it in 1616. So this is removing all flora and fauna that aren't natively there, get rid of all the pests, remove humans' impacts, and so on and so forth. So
get rid of the sheep, obviously.
Yeah, get rid of the sheep. Get out of here, sheep. We don't want you no more. And unfortunately, rats and things were introduced to the island over the course of its history and those sorts of things. So we're getting rid of all of that. Let's turn it back to what it was, which thankfully isn't a huge job in terms of, lines on the sheet of what you've got to do. Naturally, it is a very big island, and so it is taking quite a bit of time. Today, the island is, as I said, a national park, and there is an eco resort on the southern end of the island, which was originally the sort of what do we call it? Like the sheep station, but like plantation house,
the homestead.
Yeah, the homestead. That's the word I was looking for. So the homestead itself you can stay at. It is now an eco lodge. You will find its website and booking information and all of that in the show notes. In there as well is information about ferry access to get over, and there is also a campground next to the eco lodge. So if you do want to get over there with your full wheel drive, you can. Look, if I was, well, when I go over, I should say, because it is very much on my bucket list of places to go. I would love to take my four-wheel drive over and kind of camp and explore the island at my own pace, because if you're looking for a unique sort of road less traveled, you're going to find a hard-pressed place pretty much in the country, I would say, even argue in the world, than somewhere like Dirk Hartog Island. So, and I know for a lot of four-wheel drivers, it is a bit of a bucket list. Right. There are very, very few places that you can get to essentially, you kind of have the island to yourself. It is so large that if you've got a four-wheel drive and you head beyond sort of north of where the Eco Lodge is, which is at the southern end of the island, the odds are you're probably the only people on north of the Eco Lodge. So very remote, very, very cool, incredible views, incredible fishing, by the looks of it. I haven't been there to try it out yet, but when I do, I will let you know. So get out there, visit more of this stunning country, and the beauty and majesty of this week's Two Ticks Town Talk of Dirk Hartog Island. And when you go and you catch a massive coral trout off the beach, be sure to give it a kiss from me before you release it back. And if you don't throw it back, if it's legal, send me an email. I want a piece of that fish.
Yeah. Oh, very interesting. So when he, how far did you say the island was from the mainland?
It's only about 1.5 kilometers from sort of its southern tip to the closest point.
So then you said, when you said he was going up the coast, like he went up the coast of the mainland of Australia.
Yep. Yeah. I don't think he knew it was an island.
Yeah, right.
I think he thought it was like a long finger of a peninsula.
Oh, okay.
Which is kind of the geography in the area is like that. There's lots of sort of bays and these like long sort of fingers of I guess a peninsula, for lack of a better term. Yeah. And I think he probably thought that this was like that and kind of explored a little bit and just kind of like, look, there's not much here. It's barren, it's remote, there's no real point and there's nothing really of value here either. And so I think he set off, but I genuinely think he probably wasn't aware that it was an island.
Yeah. Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting if you look how long ago it was too.
Yeah, if you look on a map, and at the time it may not have been an island because if you look at the map where it kind of the bottom tip of the island comes down, it comes between part of the mainland that sort of cups it. So there's a really good chance that when he was there, it may not have been an island, or perhaps from the sea, you may not realize that the sort of bay is actually, you can sail through it and over to the other side. So
yeah, I see what you mean. Just having a look at that map. So,
But either way, yeah, he sailed up the mainland of Australia, of Western Australia, and sort of started to map it out. But pretty quickly, like, this is very inhospitable, basically desert meets sea, you know. Even today, it's pretty tough to live in this sort of area. So I can understand why they saw this, explored it, and were kind of like, look, there's nothing here for us. Let's keep going. You know.
Oh, interesting. Didn't know, and you've been getting some good. It's been good to visit that area. Been getting some good Two Ticks Town Talk visits out of that.
Absolutely, this is a personal sort of interesting area for me. Shark Bay, I'm not really sure. I can't put my finger exactly on what it is, but there's a lot going on here that I don't know, gives me the fizz, and I definitely want to spend a bit of time when I can finally get over to Western Australia in this area. I think it's a pretty special place. So,
excellent.